Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today's build is yet again another Bleeding Warpath build. But before you turn away, this Bleeding Warpath build is different than all of its predecessors, and the main reason that I'm making it is I wanted to show off an interaction with a unique that everyone has been asking how you would use it. And that unique is the symbol of Demise. For those of you that know about the symbol of Demise, or if you're unfamiliar with it, it is an offhand catalyst that gives you intelligence, ward per second, ward retention, and ward gain on kill. And then its most important feature is that every 3 seconds it consumes all of your ward, granting you a stack of Demise for every 13 ward consumed. Each one of these stacks of Demise will then grant you 10% bleed chance and 1% bleed duration, which is huge on a bleed build. So most people that have seen this offhand catalyst have asked me, what it would be good on, and most of them go to the Spellblade, someone who can generate a lot of ward. Now you can't run this on a low life build because when it consumes all of your ward every 5 seconds, and if you're running a low life build and you have no life, you're directly linked to a one shot and you're just going to die every time. It just doesn't work. If you run a high life Spellblade and you get into it, you can generate enough ward to get that bleed chance. However, what ends up happening is the Spellblade is just not meant to be built around bleed. It does give you a nice little boost of damage, but it's nothing special. However, this is where we come to the Bleeding Warpath build. This build is already good. The Bleeding Warpath does not need this. However, it does take it to a whole nother level. And by that I mean, if you have the Bleeding Warpath build, you know that you do good bleed damage already. So imagine if you could have 50 to 100% increased bleed duration and another 200% bleed chance. It would take it even further, yes? But the question is, how do you produce ward and a good amount every 5 seconds? Well, the answer is you build a 100% crit bleed Warpath build. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. 100% crit on dot build? This guy's crazy. But I'm not. Just hear me out. When you have a 100% crit chance, you then put on 2 rings of the third eye unique. Now this will reduce the critical strike multiplier, but will increase your critical strike chance, which is exactly what you want. And then there's a 30% chance to gain ward on every crit that you do. Doesn't matter if it's one attack, every crit on all enemies will give you a chance for that ward. You throw 2 of these bad boys on and it means every hit that you do, every critical strike is going to have more than a 50% chance of giving you some ward. What this allows for is, especially against mob dense like arena, you can get 1,000 ward no problem. And every 5 seconds that ward is going to be consumed, and it's going to give you enough stacks of Demise to where you'll get almost 100% bleed duration, but you'll be guaranteed the 200% bleed chance. But wait, we'll take it one step further. What if I'm on bosses and it's single target? This is going to be garbage, right? It's not really worth it? Incorrect. Then we use potions. We convert our potions directly into ward, and you can pop 1, 2, or even all 3 potions. The more you pop, the more stacks you'll get. But just one pop of a potion will give you 50 stacks of Demise, which is going to give you 50% bleed duration and your 200% bleed chance. Now that's one potion every 5 seconds, which means every 15 seconds you're going to need 3 more potions. And bosses don't technically drop that fast, but you will still get potions, especially if you're missing one at a higher rate. So you won't get necessarily a 100% uptime of this buff, but you will have it often enough that it definitely improves the speed of killing bosses. Alright, let's go ahead and get into the skills. For skills, I'm running Volatile Reversal, Smite, Lunge, Holy Aura, and Warpath. With Volatile Reversal, this is not a skill that you have to use, and there's nothing in this build that requires you to use it. However, if you're doing a boss or if you want more crit chance, it's always nice to throw in a reversal so that you'll automatically lunge at the nearby target that's next to your mouse, and then you can go back into Warpath and still have the same amount of mana, but you'll also have your 100% crit chance. So for Volatile Reversal, we have 3 points in Time Sap, 1 point in Time Lost Vitality, 3 points in Catching Up, 3 points in Warped Time, 2 points in Traveler's Fatigue, 2 points in Ancient Reversal, 1 point in Terminal Void Rift, 3 points in Dark Expanse, and 2 points in Harbinger of Dust, so that the enemy will take more damage when hit by the Void Rift. Now again, like I said, this is not a skill that you'll have to use, although it is nice to have it because it's an instacast, and so while you're warpathing, you can use it without having to manually stop the warpath, and you can actually keep your finger on warpath, and then you'll automatically lunge if there's a target next to your mouse, which will give you that 240% crit chance that we have inside lunge, and then you'll continue on warpathing without having lost any mana. And again, the critical strike chance, you want to have as many crit hits as possible. That's how we're building up the ward so that we get more bleed. Then for Smite, we have Smite set up because the idols we're running are going to be Smite idols because they also have physical damage over time, so it allows for you to get the bleed damage as well as get the attack speed from Smite. And Smite just looks cool, and all the lightning hits that it does are also really cosmetically very good looking, so it's something that I enjoy using. I have 4 points in Holy Fire, 2 points in Blinding Flash, 1 point in Order of Lagan, 1 point in Unbalanced Scale, and 3 points in Wandering Bolts, 1 point in Holy Wave, 3 points in Righteous Fury, and 5 points in Righteous Flurry, so that you get that 50% attack speed, which is a really nice buff, and it should be going off every 4 seconds as long as you continue to hit enemies. And the way that works is it gets procced on a throwing attack. Your melee attack of Warpath will be throwing an axe thanks to a passive. You have a chance to throw an axe every second, and that axe that hits enemies will proc Smite for you. For Lunge, we have 4 points in Into the Fray, 3 points in Tactician, 2 points in Deadly Aim, 4 points in Forge On, 1 point in Unstoppable, 1 point in Initiative, and 5 points in Avenger's Charge. I like to put Lunge on autocast so that whenever I do use Volatile Reversal while I'm warpathing, it'll automatically use Lunge as long as there's a target somewhere close to my mouse. Then for Holy Aura, the reason we're going with Holy Aura is while it does have a mana cost, we're not actually going to be using it. It has all these passive effects that really help you stack your resistance, give you some damage, some attack speed, and those things by themselves is why we use it, is because we don't want to spend any mana, because we don't want it to feel clunky. That's why we didn't go with sigils, is we don't want to make you have to use Volatile Reversal. I just want you to take Warpath and the Lunge, and therefore you can get your mana always full and you can have the 100% uptime of Warpath. So we have 4 points in Vital Boon for some health regen. You don't necessarily need this. You can put these points elsewhere if you'd like. 5 points in Shelter from the Storm. This is so you get 25% elemental and poison. You get 50% if it's active, but you get this 25% all of the time as long as it's on your skill bar. 5 points in Call to Arms for physical damage, 4 points in Fanatism for attack speed, and 2 points in True Strike for some critical strike chance. You can definitely move 2 of these Vital Boon points over to the True Strike. And then for Warpath itself, so a couple of things about this. First off, the 1 point in Reckless Spin, a lot of people will tell you that this is a noob trap and that it makes you take all of this damage, and while that is true, you will take more damage, it is still viable to use it in endgame. All of the bosses have been defeated with this build, as I'll show you the gameplay. Yes, you will take some more damage, but it's not going to make or break the build. And it is possible to get around having to use this, but you will have to get rid of Valdor's Chalice, the unique relic, which is going to give you all the bleed leech and health per bleed stack on an enemy death, and instead get a crafted relic that gives you the -3 melee attack, which is weird that it even works because it's not supposed to be a channeling reduced mana thing. I'm not sure if that's a bug or if they actually intended it to work that way. But if you switch that out, then you could put this 1 point into Unchained instead, and then with the -3 from the relic, you'll be able to still do this for free and have the rest of the tree the same. Now the reason that we have this -4 channel cost, the reason it is needed is because we ended up putting 3 points in Precise Spin for that base crit chance, because this is based around trying to get to 100% crit chance so that you can get as many crits as possible to stack all that ward to get as much bleed as possible. So again, if you have survivability issues, you'll have to switch out the relic, which then means you'll lose a bunch of leech. You can switch it, then you can pop this point out and put 1 point into Unchained instead. The other points in the tree, we have 2 points in Iron Reach, 3 points in Rolling Blades, 3 points in Unchained, 4 points in Quicksilver Wind, and 1 point in Temporal Cascade. The reason for the 1 point in Temporal Cascade, because it probably doesn't seem like it does very much, and we don't have any spell damage, is because you're doing so many hits that this 1 point can get a lot of cascading orbs, which create void rifts upon landing. And what's nice about these is that you apply a lot of future strikes because the cascading orb is doing hits, and the future strikes are more hits. Even though the future strikes themselves don't apply bleed, it's the fact it's just a little extra damage, and these themselves will, the cascading orb will apply bleed on the enemy. So it's just a little extra damage for a small chance. But if you want to put that point somewhere else, you can. I didn't see anywhere else on this entire tree that would actually benefit more from it, because if you put the 1 point into a negative channel cost, we're not doing hit damage, and then you don't have an additional point to take advantage of that negative channel cost. So, you know, if you put 1 point into precise spin for more crit chance, then you'll start losing 1 mana per second, and you're just 1 point shy in this of being able to actually put it like somewhere that you'd want. You could do a little area instead. Like I said, the cascading orbs seem to make a much bigger difference than anywhere else that you could put that final last point. Then for passives, got 24 points in the Sentinel base class with 1 point in Overwhelm, 8 points in Juggernaut, 5 points in Armor Clad, 5 points in Counterattack, 1 point in Banish, and 4 points in Axe Thrower. Very important to have at least 1 point. You don't need all 5 points. You probably don't even need 4. I'd say 2 or 3 points is probably enough, because there's a 32% chance on an axe throw to proc the smites that you need, and you can only proc this 1 time per second, which means at 32% you only need 3 hits per second. And against a single target, that's about what you're getting, but against many enemies, you're getting well more hits than that. So 4 points for me was kind of where you wanted it for like bosses, but if you're just running echoes and doing things, 4 points is probably a couple of points too much. I got 25 points in the Void Knight. We got 10 points in Abyssal Endurance, 5 points in World Eater, and 10 points in Future Strike. Now the reason for Future Strikes, because you're probably wondering why we would run those on this build, is because when you throw the axe, you now have a 100% chance on hit to apply a Future Strike. So every enemy that axe hits not only has a chance to proc the smite, but it puts a Future Strike on them, and that Future Strike grabs a throwing attack tag, which is really weird. And when it does that and then it explodes 2 seconds later, it has a chance again to proc another smite. So it's just a way of getting extra smites, and in the Paladin tree there wasn't really much left that these 10 points would really be better spent on, so this is where they went. 0 points in the Forge Guard and 62 points in the Paladin, with 8 points in Conviction, 6 points in Defiance, 4 points in Valor, 7 points in Holy Symbol, 8 points in Faith Armor, 10 points in Penance, 7 points in Redemption, and 12 points in Reverence of Duality. For items and idols, the idols you want in the prefix slot, you'd like percent chance to cast Smite when you hit with a throwing attack. Now when you Warpath, from the passive skill, you have a chance to throw an axe every second. That axe you throw will not only apply future strikes, but its hit can proc Smite, and then the future strikes that it applies can apply a smite when they go off 2 seconds later. It sounds confusing, but basically future strikes that are applied by a throwing attack get the throwing attack tag and therefore can proc smite as well. Basically, just this is how you get smites. And then for the suffix, you get physical damage over time. Getting more of those is going to increase your bleed damage, as bleed is physical. And then, as you can see, yeah, it's a lot of uniques, but to be fair, it's only a couple more uniques than what we had on previous Warpath builds, and to top it off, all the new uniques that we're using are not new uniques to the game, so you probably have a bunch of them, as most of them are very common ones to get. So for starters, we have the Undisputed. This is not one that you have to wear. You can actually put on just about any weapon that you want. So here I have Undisputed on. I can use the Humming Bee. The Humming Bee actually works really well with this build, believe it or not, because you're getting more ward on melee hit, and we don't care about the hit damage, so the base melee physical damage is not a big deal. However, this gives you a lot of attack speed, and it also gives you some move speed before your ward is consumed, but on top of that, you get even more ward. So not only do you get a percentage of ward, you know, a percentage chance of ward on every crit, but now you're guaranteed it on every hit, and it just lets you get even more bleed duration. So even though this doesn't have bleed chance or bleed duration on the weapon itself, it does increase it. Another thing that you can run is the Eulogy of Blood. This will increase your critical strike chances because it can have up to 5% base critical strike chance for you. It also comes with a 100% chance to bleed on melee hit and more bleed duration. This one will definitely improve your damage by quite a bit. On top of that, it will cast Rip Bloods, so it will actually heal your health as well too if you're not leeching enough. And then we have the Taste of Blood, which is not my favorite one because when it speeds up all the bleed on an enemy to double in speed, it actually reduces the total duration. So you're getting the same damage, you're just getting it faster, and therefore it doesn't stack as high, and it just doesn't seem to do as much damage as what you can get with the other weapons. And then of course you can always craft any axe that you want to just put bleed chance on hit on it and attack speed if you'd like with crit chance. You can basically craft exactly what's on the Eulogy. But getting into the other uniques, we are wearing the Rings of Argentus. Now this one's a bit tougher to get. It is a very low percentage chance on an empowered boss, but it's going to give you more or less damage taken while moving, and that's going to be a huge thing for survivability. Once you put this on, you're just not going to die in boss fights. Even though we've taken in the Warpath tree that you take 25% more elemental damage, you can see in my fight against Harriot that we literally there was no scary moments. You literally just fly through the boss because there's such damage reduction and you're moving that you're able to dodge the things you need to dodge. Not to mention that this basically gives you 100% uptime of haste to where you're moving even faster. And then the other new unique to the game is Valder's Chalice, which gives you that chance to bleed on hit, bleed duration, you leech bleed damage, and then you get a bunch of health per kill or on kill per stack of bleed on the target, which when you kill just trash mobs, you've already applied so many stacks of bleed to them that they can take you from having no life to full life with just one kill. You don't even need the leech at that point, you just have to get some trash kills. And then for the new uniques to this build, we have the symbol of Demise, which is going to give you, that ward retention, ward gain on kill. It's going to give you intelligence and ward per second so that you have more ward retention, and the ward per second, as you can see right now, I'm constantly getting 5 stacks, which means without taking any hits and without generating any ward, just standing in place, I get 50% more bleed chance and 5% more bleed duration, which is pretty cool for an item where you don't have to do anything. And then we have the Chains of Euros belt. This gives you 25% increased ward gain from potion use. It gives you your necrotic resistance, and then it also grants you only ward from your potions. So if I use just one potion, I jump up to 500 or 600 ward. And then we have 2 Rings of the Third Eye, which give you more critical strike chance, less critical strike multiplier, which is fine. That's not how we're doing our damage. And then they give you a 30% chance each to gain 17 ward on your critical strikes, which is going to be 100% uptime as long as you're lunging, quite often. So the way I use it is you'll do a reversal, you'll lunge, and then Warpath has its 100% crit, and you still have full mana. For our crafted items, for the belts, or for the boots, we have increased movement speed, strength, resistance, and increased armor. The gloves, we have critical strike chance, increased melee attack speed, hybrid health, and critical strike avoidance. For the helm, we have bleed effect, and then we have hybrid bleed, which is physical damage and bleed duration, physical resist, and increased armor. And then we have a jade amulet with critical strike chance, physical damage, poison resist, and elemental resist. And then for the character sheet, as you can see, we're capped on all resistance except poison. We have a decent amount of armor, which this goes up significantly, especially depending on what blessings you have. I have a blessing that increases flat armor while channeling, which is pretty huge for it. We do not run any dodge. Since you're not really crafting very many slots, you just really can't get enough dodge. But if you could build dodge into this build, it would be even better due to the fact that then your ward would never be taken on your hits. And if you did take one hit and then dodge everything else, if it affected your health, that's fine, you're just going to leech it right back. And then for skill rotation, so how I play this build is I'm just going to put Lunge on autocast, and that's it. Okay, that's all you have to do. It's on autocast, and that's really all you have to worry about. You can see from that one hit I got 2 extra stacks. And then all you do is just Warpath. You just Warpath around now, not using anything, not using potions. If I just sit here, you can see I'm getting 19 stacks of this. I'm almost hitting the cap of 20 stacks. It really depends on the 30% proc rate. But you can get, from here it looks like we're getting anywhere from 10 to 20 stacks without having to do anything. Just to Warpath. That's 100% to 200% more bleed chance, and that's 10 to 20% more bleed duration. And then where it really gets good is then you can use reversal, It's going to give you more attack speed. You're going to get that lunge in so that you get more crits. So you can just do that, and you can see we're going to get over 20 stacks here. Now, just by reversing and using lunge now, we're guaranteed our 20 stacks when we do this. Okay, 19, but you're right around that 20 seconds. Now, remember, you're going to be being hit by mobs at the same time, so you're not going to get quite that many stacks. And also remember, this is a single target. If there's more than one mob, you're going to get even more stacks because you're doing more critical strikes. But then where it gets really good, and here we're not really proccing Smite at all, or if at all, so we're not getting the 50% attack speed from Smite, which will also be helping you, and it's really easy to get 100% uptime of that. You're going to pop some potions, and you have to kind of time this with the timer here. So I like to use my potions right before it's about to go off. That way if I do take a hit, it's not going to reduce my ward and then we, wasted a potion because we got ward, took a hit, and it was life. We were just going to leech back. I want to get as much ward as possible right before the timer is up so that I consume it all for the buff, and then if I take a hard hit, that's fine. We're going to be leeching all of that back almost immediately because of our bleed damage anyway. So I get into my rotation here, and then right before that timer ends, I'm going to pop all 3 of them, and you'll see how many stacks? 131 stacks, just like that. Now, you're obviously not going to use 3 potions all the time. 1 potion at a time is going to be enough, which gives you about 50 stacks. But 131 stacks. That means that right there we had 200% increased bleed chance and 131% increased bleed duration, which is just a huge amount of bleed duration, especially when you're already getting another 50% bleed duration from your chalice. You're getting on your weapon, you could get even more if you wear the eulogy or if you wear the taste of blood, but it just opens up all of these possibilities, and I hope that this gives you some sort of idea of other builds that might possibly work with this. Now, I'm still trying to get it to work on the rogue. I've been messing around with some stuff, but if you're not dual welding on the rogue is kind of garbage. So I'm still working on it, but I hope that it gives you some ideas, and maybe even now you can take it, to another Sentinel class, or possibly even take it to a Primalist, which I'm thinking of doing next. Alright, let's go ahead and get into some more gameplay.